I'm back. I don't know what that was. I was singing that song all in the hour. I don't know. I don't know, when I be creating content, I'll sit there and I'll just make a song. But how do y'all like the new look? You know, the light. I switched the light. The light was over here and that was up here. Yeah, I like that too. I like that a lot. I'm gonna keep it that way. Anyways, guys, today we are reacting to the CIA officer who exposed America's torture programming. My fault. Minutes with. You know what I'm saying? I saw this on TikTok. I was like, yo, I have to react to this. No, I didn't. No, I did. I saw this. I saw Phantom react to this. Phantom from the AMP. And I was like, yo, we had to react to this. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, guys, I don't know what I plan to do for this channel. I'll probably do more reactions. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. You know, leave in the comments what you want me to react to, or what you want to see on this channel in the future. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I like dibble and dabble on this channel, see what I like and don't like. You know, I'm a young teenager, 17. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, if you enjoy the content I produce and the content, like, you know, in general, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps out very much. It helps me out. It helps me know that you like me, you fuck with me, and you know, I love y'all too. You know what I'm saying? So enough with this talking, bro. Let's get into this video, bro, because I'm dead ass curious about like what he says in this shit. You know what I'm saying? So let's get to it. Okay, guys, so I am right here in y'all face, right here. I'm right here in your face. I'm gonna be put right here. So my OBS kind of messed up, so the little circle thing I'm gonna have to do that in the next video. So today, you know, y'all would recognize him if I show him to y'all. So this is the guy right here, bro. He's been doing numbers. He's been popular. I've been seeing this guy all over TikTok and all over Instagram, bro. So I have to react to him, bro. And it's some crazy shit. Which one of y'all saw the hummus? Which one of y'all saw the fucking hummus video? If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's not free, bro. If you don't know the hummus, the fucking hummus, that's the reason I gotta react to this guy, bro. The fucking hummus, gang. So further on, bro, I see the caption of it. I'll never forget his words. It's crazy, bro. So let's get into this.
His words, he said, something terrible is going to happen. We're hearing camp commanders on the phone with their students, and they're crying and saying, I'll see you in paradise. And he said, I'm begging you, if you have any sources inside Al-Qaeda, please help us.
You know, I gotta put on my glasses. You know what I'm saying? Like, show y'all what's up for real. You know. Hold on, let me see if there's audio. Okay, so there's definitely audio.
He was recruited by the CIA beginning in the late
Y'all fuck with my glasses? Okay, my fault. Let's continue.
80s, but in a very odd way that is no longer legal. I was in graduate school at George Washington University in Washington, D.C., and I was taking a class called The Psychology of Leadership that was taught by an eminent psychiatrist by the name of Dr. Gerald Post. Dr. Post gave us an assignment one day where we had to shadow our bosses and write a psychological evaluation of our bosses. And I was shadowing my boss, and he was a very difficult, mean, unpleasant, strong, brutish kind of person. And I went back to my apartment and I wrote my paper. And I said that he was a sociopath with psychopathic and possibly violent tendencies. I gave Dr. Post the paper, and a week later, he gives it back to me, and he gave me an A, and underneath the A, he wrote, please see me after class. So I went to see him, and I said, Dr. Post, you wanted to see me? He said, come to my office. So we went downstairs in the building into his little academic's office. He closed the door and he said, look, I'm not really a professor here. I'm a CIA officer undercover as a professor here. And I'm looking for people.
What? That's fucking. So you just admit that? He just bluntly admit that to like a student? What the fuck? What the fuck?
Who would fit into the CIA's culture. I think you would fit in. Do you want to be a CIA officer? And I said, yes. And so he made some calls. It was up to me to pass all the tests, and there were a lot of tests. But that's how I got into the CIA.
And I guess when you first joined the CIA, what was the global political landscape like, and what was the US's stance with their foreign policy?
When I joined the CIA, the Soviet Union was literally in the process of collapsing. And so all eyes were on Eastern Europe. My expertise was in the Middle East. I had a bachelor's degree in Middle Eastern studies. I had studied Islamic theology with one of the leading Muslim scholars in the West. And my master's degree was focused in foreign policy analysis. So I was very specific about the Middle East. And so I was assigned to Iraq.
Okay.
And I immediately became Saddam Hussein's classified biographer in the intelligence community. So while the Soviet Union...
Saddam Hussein, hold on. Let me look. Hey Siri.
Uh-huh.
Who is Saddam Hussein? Okay.
falling apart, and those analysts are becoming big stars. I focused on Iraq, and then much to my shock and the world's shock, 9 months later, Iraq invaded Kuwait and overthrew the Kuwaiti royal family and seized Kuwait's oil fields. This was a naked act of aggression and war. And so I walked in that morning. I got up early because we knew that the invasion was coming.
Oh, wow.
We predicted 30 days before that Saddam would invade Kuwait. But I got into the office.
Oh, wow. So, like, y'all knew 30 days before. So, y'all predicted it. Damn. Damn, bro. Niggas already knew shit was already popping out, bro.
Early, and my boss...
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know half of what he's talking about. I know some parts of it from my history class, but majority of this I do not know. So this is like new to me.
And said, "Don't take your jacket off. We're going to the White House." And I had never been to the White House before, so we got in the car. We drove to the White House.
Kind of fucking life this nigga live, bro. Nigga, after they invaded Iraq, bro, these fucking straight to the White House, bro.
And we were escorted into the Oval Office. And keep in mind, I was 25 years old at the time. And you walk into the Oval Office, and here's the president, the vice president, the national security advisor, the CIA director, my boss, and me. And the mood is very heavy. So everybody sits down, and the president says, "Well, now what do we do?" And then everybody turns and looks at me. And it took me a second to get my bearings. And I said, "Well, the Kuwaiti government's been overthrown. The Iraqi government announced this morning that they had installed Ahmed al-Khatib as the occupation governor of..."
You know, I think I got that wrong. Iraqi. I don't. That's fucking crazy. So the fucking president looks at this nigga. So he's like, "Now what do we do?" And they just like, the other guy, they just look at this nigga. My history to this is not there. I'm learning as we go.
Of Kuwait. I said, "Unfortunately, we happen to know a lot about Ahmed Khatib. He got a medical degree at the American University of Beirut, and his college roommate was George Habash, and together they created the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine." And the vice president says, "Jesus Christ." And I thought, wow, this is bad. We finished the briefing, got up and walked out, and two things happened. My boss said to me, "There's something you need to understand." He said, "I'm not sure that you're appreciating the importance of what's happening. It's not unusual for a country that we cover to go to war. It's highly unusual for a country that we cover to go to war with us. And then later that afternoon, Margaret Thatcher, who at the time was the British Prime Minister, called the president. It was George H.W. Bush, and famously told him, these were her words, "Now's not the time to go wobbly, George." And that call was like a wake-up call for George H.W. Bush. And so we sent the largest army deployed since the end of the Vietnam War. We invaded Kuwait, we liberated it, and then the rest is history.
Whoa.
What's that?
I just built a budgeting app in Base 44.
Guys.
You were then stationed in the Middle East. What was your role out there?
I served first in Saudi Arabia, then in Kuwait, and then I went back to headquarters for a while and decided that I so loved serving overseas that I wanted to do it on a longer-term basis. So I applied for what's called a rotation at the State Department. And I mean, this was an honest-to-God State Department job where I left the CIA and I went to the State Department. I was sworn in as a Foreign Service officer, and I became the economic officer at the American Embassy in Bahrain for 2 years, and then back to headquarters to work on Iraq again. But I did get bored. After 7.5 years of Iraq, every single day Iraq. And so I made a very unusual transition from intelligence to operations, and specifically to counter-terrorist operations.
What does that mean?
So as an analyst, your job is to sit in a cubicle, read all source intelligence that's coming in from all over the world, think the big thoughts, write papers that probably nobody will ever read. Once or twice a week, you write something for the president, if it's important enough to merit his attention. And then you go home at the end of the day. Counterterrorism operations was what you see in the movies. I went straight into weapons.
Damn, he just bashing them niggas. He said, all y'all do is scratch your ass and go home. He said all y'all do is scratch your ass and sniff the hand that you scratch your ass with and go home. Damn.
And then after weapons, I went into explosives. After explosives, I went into counter-terrorist driving, and then advanced counter-terrorist driving, which was out in the desert out west. And then you learn how to spot, assess, develop, and recruit spies to steal secrets.
And what year was this?
That was 1997.
And was there any other time in these years that you were questioning the ethics of the agency and the work you were doing?
No, I didn't question the ethics of the agency at the time for a very specific reason. When Bill Clinton was elected president, he issued an order that the CIA had to, what they called, cull their recruited assets. Anybody who had what the White House described as a human rights problem was to be fired, right? So we didn't want to do business anymore in the 1990s with death squad leaders or assassins. And Clinton was serious about that. And I remember saying to a colleague at the time, I can't believe they're actually serious about human rights. This is really a very pleasant surprise for me. But Bill Clinton wasn't president forever. He was only president for 8 years. And then 9/11 happened, and literally everything changed in the blink of an eye.
So in 2001, where were you working? What was your role at that time?
In 2001, I had just returned from my first overseas operational tour in Athens. And I was working in headquarters, and my job was to train Middle Eastern intelligence services in how to carry out counterterrorism operations. And so I had to go to the White House on the morning of September 11th, 2001, with the director of the CIA's Counterterrorism Center, Ambassador Kofor Black. And I walked over to his office to tell him that our car was ready to take us to the White House. And when I got there, his secretary had a small TV on her desk because you couldn't watch TV on your computers back then. And the news was on, and one of the towers of the World Trade Center was burning. And I said, what happened to the World Trade Center? She said, a plane had flown into it. And I said, well, you know, that happened once before. In 1932, a plane flew into the Empire State Building, but it was really raining and very foggy that day. It's so clear today. How can you not see that you're flying into the World Trade Center? And as soon as I said it, the second plane hit. And she turned to me and she said, did you see that?
That's not funny. That's not funny. Hold on. Let me lock in. It's not funny. I'm sorry, chat.
Or did I imagine it? And I ran back to my office and I said, guys, 2 planes just hit both towers of the World Trade Center. I think we're under attack. And then everybody ran up to...
Why the fuck is he saying it like that? Hey, 2 planes just hit the World Trade Center. I think we're under attack.
Office. TVs all over the place. And we're all just standing there. And then the 3rd plane hits the Pentagon. There was an officer from the CIA police force. We have our own internal police force. And he came in and he said, everybody evacuate, right now, everybody evacuate. Nobody budged. We just stood there. And then finally somebody shouted, behind me, somebody shouted, will someone please lead? And Kofor said, yeah, you go to the director's office and tell him this. You go to security and tell him that. You go up to operations.
Man, bro, like I can't imagine how it was back then. Like 2 planes hit the World Trade Center. The World Trade Center, I believe that's what it was called. The Twin Towers. One hit the Pentagon, and being who this man was, I don't know where he was at the time. Probably around the White House, and Lord knows, them niggas was probably aiming for that too. Probably, bro. I don't know, but was he at the White House when this was happening? I don't know, but damn, bro, I'll be scared too, bro. Like, nigga, of like, you know where them planes are trying to head, and you know where the next one probably gonna head, and you probably in the area where it's gonna head at.
You know, so everybody started to scramble. The rest of us are just standing there. And then finally, a guy said to me, a guy I was standing next to, he said, there's still a plane in the air. And I think we should probably assume that it's coming here.
See, I told y'all. I don't know if it was the White House, though, he was in, though.
My girlfriend, who later became my wife, she was also a senior CIA officer. She met me at my apartment, and we went to the roof, and we watched the Pentagon burn for an hour. And then she said, we should try to donate blood. So we went. There were blood mobiles all over the place, but the lines were so long, they told us it'll be 24 hours before they could clear the line. And I said to her, this is ridiculous. We have to go back to work. So I walked back to my car, drove across the grassy median, drove back to the CIA, and then I didn't leave for 4 days. I just balled up my jacket and I slept under my desk.
And I guess from that point, it changed everything.
It changed literally everything. I remember saying to a colleague, do they realize what they've done? I mean, I get that this group wants to strike a blow to US hegemony and the empire. I get it. But do they know nothing from history? Do they not know that our response is going to be 1,000 times what they did to us? And certainly, you know, we spent altogether in the so-called war on terror, we spent $23 trillion. And we killed as many as 2 million people. Did they not see that coming? Osama bin Laden said later that he wanted to damage the US economy. He failed. And he was responsible then for, you know, the deaths of an untold number of people. What did he think he was really going to accomplish?
2 million? 2 million people? They spent $23 trillion to kill him And 2 million people? What the fuck? On what? On what? Like, of course, like guns, ammunition, helicopters. Shit. I don't.
So it was
2 million people?
a failure all around and changed the world permanently.
Are you having trouble trying to keep up with your professor? You've got to try Otter. Here's how it works.
And who was Osama bin Laden and what was his intention?
The bin Laden family is a very honorable, very highly respected family. Dozens of them live permanently in the United States. They have billions and billions of dollars, and they have made that money through bin Laden Industries. So Osama bin Laden, who had vacationed as a teenager in the United States and all over Western Europe and was very Americanized, self-radicalized after the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in 1979. He went to Afghanistan in the late 1980s to fight the Soviets. He was the only member of his family that self-radicalized. Everybody else, you know, lived the good life in France, in the UK, and in the United States. And so he came up on our radar as somebody who was potentially dangerous. I sat next to a guy when I first got hired. And in the summer of 1990, he wrote a paper saying that he believed Osama bin Laden was the most dangerous man in the world. And I remember saying, who? I never heard of this guy. And he said, buddy, this is one bad guy. Watch and see. Watch and see. Well, 5 years later, I'm living in Bahrain. I'm at lunch in the embassy cafeteria, and the TV is on. And here there's a terrorist attack in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, at a facility called OPM Sang. This was a joint facility of the US military and the Saudi Arabian National Guard. And terrorists had gotten onto the base and had killed something like 5 people. And I think they were all third country nationals. I think they were Indians. So this group called Al-Qaeda took responsibility for this attack. Nobody had ever heard of Al-Qaeda. So the Saudis did what the Saudis do, and they rounded up 12.5 people. They all confessed using the identical language on national TV, and they were all immediately beheaded. Some of them may have had something to do with the attack. Some of them probably didn't have anything to do with the attack, but certainly the masterminds of this attack got away, bin Laden being the one, and he went to Afghanistan. Well, in Afghanistan, with the fall of the pro-Soviet communist government and the advent of a Taliban government, he was free to do anything he wanted. And so he ordered that his underlings create 2 training camps in southern Afghanistan, one in Kandahar province and one in Helmand province. By 2001, Al-Qaeda had carried out several large-scale attacks. And we said, well, we've got to get on the stick, and we have to find this guy, and we have to stop him. So the FBI began investigating so that he could be charged with a crime. The CIA began looking for him. We knew that he was somewhere.
That is fucking crazy. I didn't know he did all of that. All I know is that he was responsible for 9/11. This nigga sat here. This nigga sat here and did all of this? Yo. So he was a part of he was a mastermind of Al-Qaeda? I ain't gonna lie. How does someone get somebody to be like, oh yeah, what I need you to do is I need you to take the fall for me. I need you to die. I need you to die for me. You know what I'm saying? While I escape. You know what I'm saying? And the nigga like, I got you. Beheaded. They beheaded the niggas, and he like, I would get beheaded for you all day. Osama bin Laden. He's like, yeah, my nigga. And bro just took off to Afghanistan. I don't know. That's actually fucking crazy. I did not know he was responsible for Al Qaeda. I don't even know how many people Osama bin Laden had killed, and he just moved to Afghanistan, and they fucking annihilated 2 million people over there. Shit.
In Afghanistan, probably in Kandahar, but it was impossible to really find him. And then on July the 6th, 2001, I was at CIA headquarters, and I was entertaining a delegation from a Middle Eastern intelligence service. We did this literally every single day. I had arranged a briefing on Al Qaeda with a young, like 23-year-old analyst. So I said, well, we're going to start off today with a briefing on Al Qaeda. The door opens, and Ambassador Black walks in with the chief of operations for the Osama bin Laden group. And I was so shocked, I stood up and I said, gentlemen, this is Ambassador Kofor Black. He is the CIA's director of counterterrorism, and this is the director of operations for our Osama bin Laden group. And he sat down, and I'll never forget his words. He said, something terrible is going to happen. We don't know when, and we don't know where, but we know it's going to be an attack on a massive scale. We're hearing code words for a huge attack. The honey salesman is coming with vast quantities of honey. There's going to be a great wedding. There's going to be a great football match. These are all code words for an attack. He said, we're hearing camp commanders on the phone with their students, and they're crying and saying, I'll see you in paradise. And he said, I'm begging you, if you have any sources inside Al Qaeda, please help us. They were just as shocked by this briefing as I was. They didn't say anything. He got up, he shook their hands, they walked out. At the end of the day, I sent these guys back to their hotel. It was going to be a few hours before dinner. So I went to Kofor's office to thank him for spending the time. I said, Kofor, I have to ask you, I'm not working on Al Qaeda. Did you say that just for their benefit, or were you serious? And he said, oh, I was deadly serious. Something terrible is going to happen. And then sure enough, 2 months later, there it was.
You've been promised incredible things with AI, but has it actually lived up to all the hype? I can promise you that today it will.
From that moment after September 11th, you were very involved in tracking down senior members of Al Qaeda. How did that work?
Well, like everybody in the building, I volunteered to go to Afghanistan on September 12th. And I volunteered again, and again, and again, 4 times. And they kept putting me off. Well, I was one of only 16 fluent Arabic speakers at the CIA at the time. I had worked years earlier for the deputy director of the Counterterrorism Center, so I considered him to be a friend. I went into his office and I made a bold and completely empty threat. And I said, if you don't send me to Afghanistan right now, I am going straight to Exxon with my Arabic and I'm not looking back. And he says, take it easy, take it easy. Can you go to Pakistan? And I said, yes. When? He said, tomorrow. I said, yes. What do you want me to do there? He said, I want you to be the chief of counterterrorism operations. I said, fine. And so I left the next day. I arrived in Islamabad at 4 o'clock in the morning. And then the driver said, oh, I'll pick you up at 7 to take you in the office. And I said, oh my God, please. I can't sleep on planes. I haven't slept since I left Washington. It's been 24 hours. Let me have another hour, pick me up at 8. So he picked me up at 8. I was like a zombie. And I went in and introduced myself to the chief. And I said, I'm your new chief of counterterrorism. And he said, okay, have a seat. So he said, here's what I want you to do today. I want you to come up with a standard operating procedure to take down a terrorist safe house. And I said, okay. So I went back to my office.
This is actually interesting, bro.
I sat with.
I want to know. So this is like after. This is like when they're trying to catch him, right? After he committed 9/11, right? No, 7/11. My fault, bro. What the fuck? 9/11. When he committed 9/11. So I'm saying 7/11, bro. What the fuck?
The legal pad and a pen, and I thought, okay, if I were going to take down a terrorist safe house, how would I do that? And then I thought, I would want it to be dark. I wouldn't want anybody to see me. So I wrote 0200 at the top of the paper. And then I thought, I need weapons, like lots of weapons. I bought guns, ammunition, night vision goggles, battering rams, bulletproof vests, knives, walkie-talkies. From scratch, we started this thing. And I thought, well, 9/11 is an open criminal investigation, so I have to invite the FBI. And this is Pakistan. It is their country, after all, so I have to invite the Pakistanis. So I wrote, joint team, CIA, FBI, ISI, with the list of weapons. I ordered the weapons. They were there, in days. So a week later, we did our first test raid. We caught 2 Al-Qaeda fighters. Another few days later, we caught an actual mid-level guy from Egyptian Islamic Jihad. It worked. And then finally, 6 weeks later, we get word from a sister agency in the Washington suburbs that Abu Zubaydah, who we believed at the time was the number 3 in Al-Qaeda, was somewhere in Pakistan, and we had to catch him. That was all we knew. He was somewhere in Pakistan. And I said, in our morning meeting, I said, this country is the size of Texas. It has 220 million people in. What do you mean he's in Pakistan? Go catch him. We came up with a plan, and we caught him. He was shot 3 times and severely wounded. So I sat with Abu Zubaydah for 56 hours after we shot him. The Pakistani doctors there saved his life, pumping blood into him as quickly as they could. It was just oozing out of him, pooling underneath the bed. He was soaked in blood. We were soaked in blood. It was like a scene out of a horror movie. But he lived. And then finally he asked me, what's going to happen to me? And I said, honestly, I don't know. But I'm going to give you some advice. I said, I am the nicest guy that you're going to meet in this experience. My colleagues, they're not nice like I am. So if you do one thing, it's that you have to cooperate. And he said, you seem like a nice man, but you're the enemy, and I'll never cooperate. Finally, a CIA jet flew in, and 3 FBI agents and I picked up his gurney and carried him out to the plane. He was crying. He asked if I would hold his hand, which I did. We had to maneuver him. We had to stand him up on the gurney. He was strapped down. We had to maneuver him onto the plane. We laid him on the luggage rack at the back of the plane and tied him down. And he squeezed my hand, and I said, remember, you have to cooperate. And then he flew off. Well, a few weeks later, I flew back to headquarters. And I was in the cafeteria one day, just standing in the sandwich line. And a senior officer walked up to me and said, very casually, hey, I'm so glad I ran into you. Do you want to be certified in the use of enhanced interrogation techniques? And I had never heard that term before. This was May of 2002. I said, what's that mean? And he says, we're going to start getting rough with these guys.
Damn, it's almost over. But I'm going to tell y'all right now, this is 34 minutes in. Did y'all hear me right? 34 minutes in. I should have stopped 28, but I'm gonna stop 24. You know what I'm saying? No, I should have stopped at 28, but I stopped at whatever. You know what I'm saying? But like, look guys, Look, hold on. If you want to see, hold on. No, that's not for. If you want to see more of this, if you want to see more of me reacting to this, like and subscribe. You know what I'm saying? Like and subscribe, and you know, share it so you can support. You know, I ain't gonna lie. I need to get some LED lights around here because, like, hold on, I do have them. Hold on. Maybe I should have done that instead of like red. Now it just looks scary. But if you want me to react some more of this or finish it, leave a like. You know what I'm saying? I hope you have a great day. If you like this video, leave a like, subscribe, share. You know what I'm saying? I didn't say a lot in this video because I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I was very intrigued of what he was saying, bro. He's talking about like how he caught the top 3 leaders in Al Qaeda and how and some other shit about 9/11, like stirring up. They predicted that 9/11 was gonna happen 9 months before it actually happened. That's actually crazy. I don't know if it was that, but they predicted it, and that was actually crazy. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to watch more, it's almost in the 40 mark. All right, guys. See you later on the fly side.